Okay, guys, this is a sticky one. My wife's ex-husband is getting out of prison soon, and now he's threatening to completely uproot our life and try to steal his girl back. You will not believe how this one ends. My wife's ex-husband got out of prison and came back for his kids. My wife Claire never felt comfortable talking about her ex-husband. All I knew about him was that he was in prison and that was that. She and I met 3 years ago and it's been wonderful. I had absolutely no problem with the fact that she had 2 kids, Anna and Ben. They're both pretty young, still at school, so I feel like they're my own at this point. I know that all 3 of them lived some pretty tough times before Claire and I met. Most importantly, I tried my best to make them forget those times and give them the best life I could. It was finally the weekend, so that meant spending the day out having fun. It was early, around 1 p.m., when we heard a knock on the door. Claire and the kids were getting ready, so I went to open the door. It was a strange-looking man. He had a buzz cut and a tattoo on his neck. He was a massive human being, though. I asked him if he needed any help, and he just stared at me for a few seconds before just giving this fake smile and telling me that he got the wrong house, and then he left. I definitely felt eerie and uncomfortable, but I wasn't going to let it ruin the day. By the time Claire and the kids got ready and we left, there was no trace of the guy in the neighborhood. Anyways, we had our usual weekend. We went to the mall and the kids played there. Claire and I did some shopping and we had dinner. The whole day, though, I just had this strange feeling as if I was being watched somehow. I found myself looking over my shoulders constantly and just feeling anxious. Claire asked me several times if I was fine, and I told her yes. When we got back home, I could swear that some things were in the wrong place. I didn't know if I was remembering wrong, but I was sure that I left the remote, some pots, and the Alexa elsewhere. I was too tired to think, though, so we just called it a night. The next day, I woke up to the sound of the doorbell. By the time I went downstairs to open, Claire had already opened the door and she was frozen. I saw the same man who had came yesterday, and he had someone in a suit with him. I asked what was wrong and who he was, and the man in the suit told us that they would wait outside while Claire explained everything to me. As soon as they shut the door, Claire broke down crying and begged me to send them away. I was confused and just kept asking her who that was. It was a while before she calmed down and began to explain it was her husband. I kind of expected it, but I tried to comfort her. While not knowing any real details, I told her that husbands get out of prison all the time. That didn't mean he was going to come over frequently. He probably just wanted to check up on her and the kids. She kept panicking, and I told her that she needed to explain what happened between them and why he was even in prison. Just as she was about to explain, the men rang the doorbell again. The man in the suit explained to us that he was Claire's ex-husband's lawyer, and that her ex-husband just wanted to see the kids and see the possibility of spending time with them. The lawyer kept saying and selling us the legal nonsense that I did not quite understand, legal jargon. But the kids came down on their own eventually and just exclaimed, "Dad?" As soon as the ex-husband saw them, his demeanor completely shifted. He ran to them to give them a hug, smiling greatly. The kids were young, so they did not understand what was happening and just went along with it. He kept telling them how much he had missed them, and Claire was just wiping her tears in the background. Then, the ex-husband sat down with me and Claire and told us how prison changed him, how he was happy that Claire found someone, and how he is so glad the kids have a good life now. He actually seemed very nice, and shook my hand several times. Claire was being unresponsive, but he explained that he just wanted to come visit the kids every week and maybe spend some time with them, and that's that. It was a short visit, and he and the lawyer excused themselves. I did not see anything wrong with it, but as soon as they left, the kids went back upstairs. Claire snapped. She told me how he was lying and being manipulative, and that he would hurt us. I didn't understand, so I pressured her into finally telling us what happened. She spent 2 hours telling me all about their life together, how he had a drug problem that led him to eventually deal in it. She told me how, as soon as he took a hit of the drugs, he would become someone else entirely, who would hit her and curse. She told me how it got so bad that he had to sell so much stuff around the house, just so he could buy drugs and pay off the debt with the dealers. Because Claire still loved him at the time, she kept trying to have him quit, and she thought that he could still be redeemed. However, after one night when it got so bad, he hit her with a fireplace rod that still left a scar. She called the police on him and got him arrested. She told me how she was terrified that one day he would get out and come back to get his revenge on her for putting him in prison. Or worse, do something to the kids. I tried to explain to her that people could change, and that his time in prison made him a better person. I told her that even if he was that way years ago, he's still a father and he deserves to see his children. She was very hard to convince, but we agreed that he could come to spend the day with us, and the kids once a week, but he could not take the kids out alone. I called the lawyer afterwards and explained the whole situation to him. The next day, to our surprise, he showed up again. I was confused, but he told us that it was Sunday, so technically it was still on a weekend and that our deal started on that day. I did not appreciate the play, but I wanted to see what he would do. It was a fairly average day, actually. He just had lunch with us, played with the kids, and he seemed very normal. However, every time we would ask him about his time in prison, he would always change the subject. Which I understood, but we were also very curious still. It was difficult for Claire, who was clearly giving him the cold shoulder. After dinner, I went to the bathroom, and he stayed in the kitchen with Claire and the children. I suddenly heard Claire screaming and rushed out there to see what was wrong. She told me that he was pulling out a gun from his jacket, but it turned out to just be a small box that had a necklace in it. He told her it was a gift and that he's sorry. I gave her a side eye and could not believe it. I just apologized to him and he left, with the intention of coming back next weekend. After the encounter, I had a serious talk with Claire, but she was adamant about not trusting him. I told her that if she continued that way, he may get angry and then antagonize her. We agreed that she should just pretend to be nice every time he came over, since we weren't seeing him often anyways. I really just wanted all this to be over with and we could go back to our normal lives. And so I had a brilliant idea to find him a job in another state with some buddies of mine. The next time he came, things were a little bit different. I had talked to my friends out of state about the job, and I told him. However, he told us that he found some nice work from a friend who wanted to help him after prison and was happy doing it. I tried convincing him, but he wouldn't budge. After dinner, we began talking more and more. He told me how he has big plans now and wants to find more stability and be part of his children's life. On one hand, it was his right, but on the other hand, I became so protective of these kids that I did not want anything to happen to them at all. Still, I could find and tell that the kids were impressed by his cool guy look. All of a sudden, we were chatting with kids. He suggested to the kids that he would take them to the amusement park, upstate, and obviously they really wanted to go. I told him that next week I would be away on a business, so we would all have to go later. But he told the kids that he can take them alone. We didn't want to cause a scene in front of the children and just waited until they went back upstairs. He kept asking the kids how excited it would be and called it, quote, fun bonding time with Dad. Claire and I told him that he could not go anywhere alone with the kids, and he told us the kids like him and want to go with him. It got to an argument where we tried to keep our voices down. But then he yellowishly smiled, apologized, and told us that he understands and just wants to spend time with the children. We called it a night. The next day, we found him showing up again, even though he was supposed to only be here on the weekends. This time, he brought a bunch of presents for the kids and for Claire. He brought some seriously expensive stuff. He gave the kids brand new iPads and gave Claire more jewelry to apologize. He even got me a nice watch. It was a pure nice gesture, but it really rubbed me the wrong way. The kids became enchanted and started giving him so much attention that he even looked at me and winked. I realized what he was doing now. He was trying to shove me out of my life. It became the way from then on. He would come over every other day, bring stuff, tell us that he reserved this amazing restaurant or this amazing day use at a hotel, and the kids would latch onto him. What made things worse is that he looked like a child's cool guy dream. He started driving a motorcycle, usually talking to different girls on the phone, and just dressing like he came out of an episode of Sons of Anarchy. I wasn't having it. I did not want him to leave this impression on the kids. What made me even more confused is what kind of job he was doing that would make him be able to afford all that. I doubted it was anything legal, and all this money, especially since he's just been released from prison. I waited till the kids went to bed one day. Before he was able to leave, I confronted him. I told him how I did not like how he was spending so much time with the kids and the influence he was giving them. He kept laughing, making fun, and telling me to chill and stop being such a square. I was serious, and he kept mocking me and told me that maybe the kids need a proper masculine role model to look up to. I told him they don't need a criminal as a role model. We both clenched our fist and were about to throw down, until Claire came in and told him that it was too late and we needed to leave. I sat down with Claire that night, and it was like the roles were reversed. I was the one who did not want him around and was pissed. But she was getting more and more comfortable with him. She told me that he's trying to do the right thing, and I just kept reminding her of the abuse they suffered when he was her husband. We were on completely different ends now, and I was worried that she was starting to warm back up to him. She got very angry and asked me if I doubt that she still has feelings for him, and I told her of course not, that I trust her completely. Deep down, though, I didn't like the way that they were looking at each other or how they kept remembering old stuff from when they were married and young. I wasn't as cool as he was, but at least I wasn't a criminal. The next day, I went to pick up the kids from school, but they were nowhere to be found. I asked the security guard about them, and he told me they left 20 minutes ago with their dad. I was about to blow up. He took our kids, and I was dead sure he kidnapped them. I kept calling him and Claire several times on the drive back. They wouldn't answer. My blood kept boiling and boiling, and I kept thinking of all the things he could do to our children, and kept wondering where he's taken them. I ran through the door to tell Claire that our kids were kidnapped, when I saw all 4 of them sitting down by the fireplace laughing out loud. I was confused and asked what the heck's going on. He told me he picked up the children from school, gave them some pizza, and came over here. I was too angry. I made a scene. I told him how it's not his right to pick up kids and have me worry about them. He just kept making excuses and saying I was being very loud and vocal about how I felt about him, and suddenly everyone came to his defense. Even Claire. The kids kept moving closer to him, and Claire kept telling me that I need to calm down. I'm overreacting. I yelled that he's a criminal and should not be trusted, and Claire asked me to go outside, perhaps spend the night at my friend's house. I was livid. I was so upset. I saw him behind Claire laughing and waving bye-bye when I suddenly rushed over to him and told him that I knew what he was doing and he would never win Claire back or the children. He suddenly whispered that I already have, and told me that he could not wait to spend more time with Claire. I got so angry I punched him right in the face, but it set him off and he kicked me hard to the ground. Claire kept yelling, "Stop! Stop!" But he got down on his knees and whispered that it was time Claire had a real man in the house, not some low testosterone Ivy League nerd that can't hurt a fly with no wings. Claire told me to spend the night away, and I couldn't believe it. I went to my friend's place and explained the whole thing to him. He told me that there was no way he was doing all of this legally, and that he actually had a job, and we came up with a brilliant plan to follow him around and see what kind of work he actually does. The next day, we got in my friend's car, as he might recognize mine. We started following him from his motel. He drove quite a long distance, and we made sure to keep away so he wouldn't recognize the tail. Things seemed normal until he suddenly stopped near an alleyway, got off his motorcycle, and met with two strangers. They were in suits. We couldn't hear what they were saying, but they looked dangerous. Suddenly, he pulled out a white bag from his jacket and gave it to them, and they gave him a massive wad of cash. We recorded the whole thing on video, and it might have been exactly what I needed. I went back home that evening and found him there, again playing with the kids and being close to Claire. I entered the house and made a whole scene about how I finally figured out who he really was. Claire tried to tell me not again, but I immediately sent the kids upstairs and played the video on the TV, and told him and Claire that he was still a filthy drug dealer. Claire gasped and looked at him in disgust, but he just scoffed, chuckled, and told me that I have nothing on him. We walked slowly towards me and told me that I should tread carefully, gave me a bump with his shoulder, and when he was walking out, told me and Claire that he would come back for the children. Claire apologized to me and told me she did not know that he was still like that. We had a conversation about what we were going to do. Claire insisted on calling the police because I can't do anything to him, which made me feel even more belittled and unmanly. I had to prove to him and my wife that I was strong enough, so I decided not to call the police and take this matter into my own hands. The next day, my friend and I followed him again. We brought a third friend with us, which followed him all day long, until suddenly stopped his motorcycle in an empty place behind a warehouse, got off, and looked straight at us. This is the moment he pulled out a gun, aimed it at us, and made a come over here gesture. We stopped the car and got out, and he kept waving the gun around, telling us that he's sorry that we had to his line of work, but that now we would never see anything again. He told me that after he kills me, he would go back home, apologize to Claire, win the kids, and completely take my life. I kept getting redder and redder with rage, until I looked down and noticed, as the gun enthusiast I used to be in my past life, I noticed the safety pin was on the gun. The perks of being an Ivy League nerd is watching random videos about random stuff. I chuckled and immediately ran towards him to tackle him. Obviously, the gun did not go off, and I threw him down to the ground. My friends ran over and held him down as I kept hitting him in the face. It felt so good. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a genuine threat. He kept trying to go for the gun, but we made a quick work of him. He didn't have a chance against 3 men. Even if he was in prison, however, eventually he found an opening to run away. We tried to run after him, but he was too quick. I was scared he would go back to my house and hurt Claire and the children, So I instantly jumped in my car and sped back. There was heavy traffic, which made everything so much worse. I kept trying to find ways around and shortcuts, but it was clear that it would take me a while. I kept calling Claire to see if she was okay, but she wasn't answering. Eventually, she picked up and I could hear her talking to him, telling him that he needed to go, but he just kept telling her that he was sorry and they should go with him back to his motel. As soon as I arrived, I knew I couldn't beat him alone if I entered through that door, so I made my way around the back exit, grabbing a shovel from the backyard. I looked through the door window. Claire and the kids kept circling the room, so as soon as his back was turned towards me, I busted through the door and smacked him on the head with the shovel. He went down, but he was clearly on drugs and I could see the powder residue on his nose. It was as if he did not feel most of the blows, and he landed some of his own. Claire grabbed a knife and cut him through the thigh, so I grabbed my shovel and went to town on him. I just kept yelling the whole time, and I could see Claire smiling as I did it. I felt big and thinking I could protect her. I knocked him unconscious and the police show up. I explained everything to them and showed them the video. They arrested him and told us not to worry as he has more charges now to keep him in prison for a very, very, very long time. That night, we all fixed up whatever got broken in the house, and Claire told me that she never felt safer. Still, there was one more thing I needed to do to feel satisfied. After about a week, I went and visited Claire's ex-husband in prison. I looked at him, and I gloated. I looked at him, and I told him that he was wrong about me. Looking him dead in the eyes, I could see him getting angrier. I smiled and told him that I'm everything Claire wished he would have been, and that if he ever gets out of prison, I'll make sure to put him back until he's old enough to rot. I smiled, got up, and I never saw him again. I'm glad the ex-husband is back where he belongs. If narcissistic was a person, it has this guy's name written all over it. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you were OP, would you have gone about it the same way or tried something differently? This is a unique situation, so let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section. I have another story for you guys, and this one is crazy. I cannot take care of my wheelchair-bound daughter anymore. I simply cannot take care of my wheelchair-bound daughter anymore. When my daughter got shot and ended up in a wheelchair, I ended up having to kick her out. I was tired of taking care of her. I had to bathe her, cook for her, and barely had any time for her little brother. On top of that, I had to work 2 jobs and I had to come back home to take care of her. But that was not the reason I wanted her out. I did not mind taking care of her, but things got bad very, very fast. And I wonder if I failed as a mother or if my child is just rotten. I'm a 37-year-old woman and I have 2 kids. Anna, female 19, David, male 14, with a man who is no longer in our lives. The father of my children got me pregnant when I was still in high school and was supposed to go to college. I graduated but did not go further. In plain words, he stole a lot of years from me. He's a liar, a cheater, and an abuser, who I finally got the courage to get away from because I was scared that one day I would probably die from all this stress, and no one would be able to take care of my children. I got out and started working small jobs over the years, and was comfortable with my kids while Anna was finishing school. Even though I do not have a high-paying job, I saved for as much as I could so that Anna could go to college. She wanted to be a nurse, and I wanted her to have everything I never had. So I sacrificed anything I could so that she could have a better life than me, and maybe help her brother get through school. Anna was a sweet girl who never lied to me when she was growing up, but teens will be teens. We had some problems when she was growing up, but nothing too bad. But when she went off to college, she became a different person. Even though I tried my best for her to have a nice college life, she would also bother me for money. It got to the point where I started telling her that I would not pay for anything that's not related to school. After all, I had a son who was going through school to take care of. This was when she started lying to me about being sick, so I would give her money for school. She also sent me letters from the school that wanted her to buy certain books, go on trips, etc. There was an email address that she sent me to communicate with her college for anything that she needed. All this time, she was lying to me that she could have this lavish life in college. I found out later she was buying expensive clothes, substances, bunking classes, and living her best little life. I thought that she was studying so that she could at least not have to break her back working for peanuts like I was. My daughter, who never used to lie to me, told me a new lie each week. She would tell me that she did not have money for a field trip. Someone stole her laptop and a lot of other stupid lies. At the end of the week, I had to send more than half my wages because there was something new. Do you know that jealous family members were laughing at me for sending my daughter to study in a different city? They said that she would come back with a big old belly and be just like me. I prayed every night for my girl to be protected and for her to not fall for the lies of the boys in the cities. Heck, I'd fallen for the lies of a small-time boy, hence my teen pregnancy. Whenever she came home, she would tell me how she was doing and thank me so much for taking care of her. I was proud of her because I thought that she would prove all the people who were expecting her to fail wrong. I hate to be that person, but she is really her father's daughter through and through. That girl has no heart, and I really hope that she realizes the pain she put me through with that, so this is what she did to me. One day, I got a call while I was at work. It was a nearby hospital telling me that my daughter was in the hospital and has just been shot. She was supposed to be at school, so I thought it was someone who was pranking me, and nearly started cursing them out through the phone. I called her school and asked if I could speak to her, but the number did not exist. This was strange because that was the number I was used to calling. I quickly searched for the number just to make sure I had the right one. To my shock, it was a completely different number to the one I called her with. I spoke with someone and asked them if my daughter was at school and if I could talk to her. I really hoped that my daughter was there and not lying in some hospital somewhere. After a while, I was told that they've been trying to get a hold of me for a while, but the number she's put down was not going through. Before you came for me for being irresponsible, she managed to pull the wool over my eyes in such a way that I did not suspect anything was off, and I should have been smarter. I was told that she's not paid her fees for the semester, nor has she been in school since last semester. Now, this was funny because I've sent her the money for her fees for that semester. I quickly rushed to the hospital where they said my daughter was injured, and quickly got all the information. She's been shot in the middle of the day. They did not know who did it, someone who brought her in, but she disappeared before the police were called. Not only that, but they had to do surgery because the bullet was still in her. I had to borrow money from work at such a short office because, unfortunately, I canceled medical aid when I thought she was going to school. After a few hours, she woke up, and I was just glad she was alive. But the doctor told us the bad news that her spine's been damaged and she was going to be wheelchair-bound for a very long time, if not permanent. After paying off the medical fees, which left a giant dent in my finances, we were able to go home after just a few days. She was still in a very weak braille condition, and did not want to stress her, but once she started to feel better, I asked her about school. She tried to lie to me and act like nothing happened and she was still attending, but I offered to call them and ask them in front of her. She broke down in tears and told me that she's been struggling academically, so she dropped out. I asked her why she did not just come back home and we would have dealt with it. She said she was scared that I was going to shout at her or disown her. Now, I admit that I had a strict parenting style. I'm only strict to protect my kids from this evil, evil world. Not because I don't love them. I told her I was going to take care of her and make sure she recovered, then we would make a plan for her future. My parents abandoned me when I was a big mistake, so I did not want to do that to her. I asked her about the shooting now, and she said someone broke in where she was staying and they tried to rob her, and ended up shooting her. She did not wait to take the matter to the police because she did not recognize the suspect. I made her promise that she was telling me the truth, and if there were any more lies, I was done with her. I have a young son to care for, and I did not want him to be in any sort of danger. She looked me in the eyes and lied that she told me the whole truth, and she was not involved in some dodgy stuff. So now I've taken care of her, taken her to the physio, and neglect my son because the time I got free, I was so tired I fell asleep. It was difficult to work, but I am a mother, and it hurt me to see her like that. I was just happy she was alive. I knew that my son was angry with my sister. We had many fights because of that. He warned me and told me that his sister was lying about a lot of stuff, and people were saying stuff about her on the streets. But stupid me could not let Anna, who used to live with me, who did not lie and cheat because she knew how her father hurt me. The man had not even come to see her when I told him that she was shot. But he's not important right now. I started noticing that some of my medication was finishing fast, which made me suspect that she was stealing pills. And soon enough, I found a bottle of my pills in her room, but not only that, there was some white stuff there as well. I swear I know drugs when I see them, and there was nothing in the world I hate more than them. My son knows that I do not want any type of drug in my home, and the rule growing up was that if they brought drugs into my house, they're out. I confronted her about the drugs and asked her once again why she lied to me about that stuff she's involved in. I asked her if she was dealing or taking them, but she said it was for a friend. It was only when I threatened to take her to the hospital so they could test her that she admitted she was using drugs. This was absolutely the last straw for me. I worked hard so that we could be an honest girl and have a better life and make better choices than I did. But ever since she stopped living with me, I started losing parts of her. That's when I decided that I could not take care of her anymore. She most likely landed herself in that mess. What if she started to influence David to take drugs as well? She denied dealing, but I've lived around dealers in my neighborhood and I know the signs. Because not only did I find the drugs, but some money that she had no way of earning. Who knew what kind of people who were entering my house when I was gone, and the things they were doing inside here? I decided that I was done with her. I've tried, but she was already gone, and the only thing I could do was protect David. I'm ashamed to even talk about how my child had to go without new clothes or presents, while his sister was in college. But he understood even though I knew that he was being bullied for the way he looked. Now, I wished I had saved money and told her to get a job. I told her that she had to leave my house and come back when she was the daughter that I raised. I gave her an hour to pack her stuff and told her that I did not care where she went, but she just had to go. Once again, she cried crocodile tears and said I was cruel because I was kicking her out while she was in a wheelchair. I told her the truth, and she put herself in that situation, and I owe her nothing. I still loved my baby, and my heart broke, but what could I do? I was exhausted by the money problems, working my job and doing side gigs to the point of burning out, and still taking care of her because of her stupid choices. And this girl had the nerve to tell me that I would regret it if I was going to hell for the way that I am treating her. Some girl came to take her, and she was her roommate that she's been when the gunshot occurred. They did not give any chance to ask questions, and the only communication between me and Anna was our shouting. Later that day, I started getting calls from family members and other people in the community, calling me a failure of a mother. They called me so many names, and some even threatened to get David taken away from me because I've kicked out my daughter. My family members said that I kicked her out because I did not want to take care of her, but she did not mention her drug problem. No one wanted to believe me when I said she has one, because she had lied to them and she's lied to me. And let me just tell you, that child can lie. Anyone can be fooled by her lies and acting. A lot of mothers stopped talking to me or were rude to me when they saw me because they thought I was heartless without getting my side of the story. No one wanted to listen to me or my full story because she was claiming that I've been abusing her when she was staying with me, which I never did. It got so bad that I felt that David and I were in danger. And I get that it looked bad, but I had many reasons that I still stood by. I moved on with my life and started focusing on paying off debt that I had because of her. I was probably going to have to sell my house to be able to pay off the mountain of debt, but I hoped it would not come to that. My relationship with Anna was now over, and I only had David to take care of. I got lucky enough to get another job that paid slightly more, and the extra money helped so that we could survive. A long time went by, and I did not think I would hear from her ever again. One day, when I came home from work, I found that the door was opened. It was in the afternoon and David was still at school, so I found it weird. I asked my other neighbor to help me look and see if there's burglars. When he did not come out, I went into my house and there I found people I've never seen before just sitting in my house comfortably. They looked very creepy and very dangerous. So I told them to take what they wanted, thinking that I was being robbed. The man who seemed to be in charge told me to sit down, and I did because I was terrified of him. He told me that my house was now his and he was giving me until the end of the day to leave. I was so confused. But the deal was that my daughter owed those guys, let's just say, a lot of money. And I think they were the ones who shot her. They were going to take the house because my daughter was unable to pay the money back. And they did take the house while David and I were putting on the streets. We tried to fight them, but once they started to threaten my son's life, I thought it was better for us to leave them than to hurt my son. As it was not enough that she lied about going to school, I was once again suffering because of that monster of a child. I'm not gonna lie, guys. This story at the end took the wildest turn that I did not see coming. I have a few questions. Where were the police? Why did she just allow strangers to come in her house and steal the home? I don't know. This story was all over the place. I don't know if it was in some third world country or somewhere where this kind of thing can happen, but I have so many questions. If there's ever an update for this story, you will be the first to see it. Drop your thoughts down below and let me know. How wild was this story on a scale from 1 to 10? That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, show a little love for the channel and smash that like button. I'll see you guys tomorrow.